Hey everybody! So as you can probably guess from the title of this video, we are going to be discussing spontaneous integration. And not only are we going to be discussing what spontaneous integration is, we are also going to be talking about how we recently experienced a spontaneous integration. Now, when a lot of people hear the word integration, they think of therapy-led integration, wherein a therapist guides you and your system mates into fusing into one singular identity. That is not what we're talking about here. With spontaneous integration, what it is an integration that happens within the system on its own. And this is something that the host or certain other members of the system may or may not be aware of until after it's happened, or they may actively collaborate in planning this integration and tell everyone about it, and then those system members integrate and everyone knows. Now, spontaneous integration does not happen to every system all the time in the same way, and some systems may never have a spontaneous integration. It entirely depends upon the number of system members, where they're at in their healing journey, and whether or not they feel that it is best to integrate. Now, in the case of some system members, they're going to be very anti-integration. In fact, in our system, we're all pretty much fairly anti-integration for us personally. We do not want to integrate into one singular identity simply because there are so many of us and we have lived this way for so long that it just really wouldn't be doable. But spontaneous integration feels much different for us. Spontaneous integration feels like a choice. It doesn't feel like a death. It doesn't feel like a loss so much as it feels like something someone is doing to become healthier. And what happened in our particular case is, as you may or may not know, we recently experienced a new trauma. And this trauma led to the splitting off of two new system members, Mitch and Fear. These two system members split off me, Kit, specifically. And I retained the memories of the event that occurred, but I was unable to access the anxiety coping skills which Mitch had, as far as we could gather, because at the time I did not feel that I could deal with the situation. I did not feel that I had the necessary skills to deal with the situation. So he took them in order to keep them safe. And Fear got the fear of abandonment. So they took some of the aspects of the trauma, but not the memory. And because of this, it was discussed in therapy that it was likely that these two would not be around forever, simply because they were not memory holders in any way. They were not fully formed people in the same way that a lot of us are. They were very much fragments. And because I was actively working, as were all of the rest of us, on processing this recent trauma, and we were making a lot of progress in doing so. And a lot of times when you process the traumatic event and take away the emotional impact that that trauma had, there can be members of the system who no longer feel that they need to be separate. Or conversely, you can have a system member who is feeling very non-functional and who simply needs more stability, and so they choose to integrate with a more stable system member. Well, in the case of Mitch, who had the anxiety coping skills, he came to me and he said that he felt that I personally was doing a good job in handling the trauma because I was the one personally present for the trauma. And he felt that I was ready to carry those skills again. And would I be willing to integrate with him? And I agreed and said that I would be willing to do this. And so we did, and it was the most bizarre feeling ever. I don't know that I could really describe it. The best way I could think to explain it would be it felt like being dissociated, but in reverse, if that makes any sense. It felt like instead of separating myself from something, I was pulling myself toward something. And it was almost like I could hear an audible click when everything just came together. And we were suddenly one person. Still Kit, because that is my name, and I don't feel that anything about that has changed. Likely because both of them split off of me, that had a lot to do with it, and likely because they were so new to our system. But after Mitch integrated with me, Fear was very distraught. Fear did not feel like he could be left alone. He felt like he needed Mitch. He felt like he could not function. And so I asked him if he would like to integrate with me to get that safety back. I told him that he did not need to carry those fears for me anymore. That I could take them and I could carry those fears. And that if he wanted to, he could come be with me and not have to be alone. And he agreed to that. And so he also integrated with me. And it was also a very odd feeling. It felt very strange. It felt different than integrating with Mitch. With Mitch, it felt like pulling something toward me. With Fear, it felt like suddenly having a bunch of pressure inside my head and then just simply feeling all of these feelings all of a sudden that he had been keeping. And that is something that we've been working really hard on processing right now. Because those fears are fears that a lot of us in our system have, but they're fears that I personally have had a lot of for a long time. I can live without another person and be perfectly fine. I can get along with my life and move on. But the idea of being discarded or thrown away is a huge trigger for us. And me personally, a lot. Because of some of our experiences when we were growing up. So it was a really difficult thing to take on, but I did not want to leave Fear carrying nothing but fear and abandonment issues and having no real support because he wouldn't let anyone in to help him. And he seemed very grateful to reintegrate with me and was much more comfortable than he had been before we started talking about it. So I think overall it was the best decision for us. But it was certainly a difficult one, especially because we've been so against any of us integrating unless it was something that they absolutely wanted to do. It was very difficult for me to offer that to someone else. Because we've always talked about how, everyone should get to decide whether or not they want to integrate, and I've always very strongly felt like I didn't want to. But in this situation, it felt like the best thing to do for us as a system. And I am glad that I did it now, because now I feel more like myself, because I lost aspects of things that I had when they split off from me. And I feel more capable of dealing with these things now that we're processing the trauma and moving through it. So, overall, it was a positive experience, but a very difficult one, because it's a difficult choice to make. And anyone out there who is a part of a system, or who loves someone who is a part of a system, please try to remember that integration of any type is not the goal. The goal is to be functional. So you have to do what feels right for you and your system. And for those loved ones who are supporting systems, you have to let them do what feels right for their system in order to be functional. Being one identity is not better. It's just different. Because yes, multiplicity in the case of DID and OSDD and dissociative disorders that have similarities to these comes from trauma. Yes, it comes from a place of pain and fear and is horrible as an experience to live through. But it's not the multiplicity itself that is the problem. It's the trauma. The trauma is the thing that needs to be healed. Being multiple is okay. It's not wrong. And it's a perfectly valid way to live. So on that note, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Have a good day, everybody.